This is Tom Meets Interesting People. This episode contains frank and honest discussions about mental health and suicide. Tim, it's so good to finally have you here. We've been trying to get this to work for ages, but I'm glad our schedules are finally aligned. I won't lie, I am resisting the urge to just pitch to you the idea of us two starting our own wrestling podcast, because I reckon we could just make like 5-hour episodes. I swear we could.
I'll tell you who I don't love, who's a little overrated, and I don't like being negative, but is not Dean Ambrose, John Moxley.
And this interview is terminated. No. My guest today is Tim Mccarthy, who is the host of the 20 Tim Minutes podcast that explores mental health through humor, insight, and personal stories.
Yeah, having the phone turned off is huge. I think because I'm always on my phone. You know how it is being a podcaster. You get a notification on Twitter, this is it. I'm blowing up. This is the big time. I was taking interviews on my days off, and I wasn't really taking care of myself. I'd be doing interviews before work, doing them on my days off, and I was just getting worn down. I'm I gotta make sure I'm doing this for me as well. I can't burn myself out, or there'd be no podcast. I learned that kind of almost the hard way, where I was man, I'm getting run down, and even a part of me was you know what, I should just shut down the whole podcast and get rid of it. I was having troubles probably between 2017 to 2019 really bad, and I didn't really know it. Everything's kind of a blur because I was in such a bad place. I tell people all the time, if you see pictures or saw me with my big beard, that's when I was at my worst. I wasn't showering, I wasn't taking care of myself, I was calling out of work. And you come up with these grandiose ideas that you'll never do. I was I'm gonna build a dog house for my dog. I don't even know how to use a screwdriver, my friend. Wife and I weren't doing too good. My marriage was kind of falling apart, and my relationships with friends were falling apart. I was very nasty. And 2019, I almost decided to kill myself via hanging. And I remember looking at the calendar, and then I waved to my dog, and then I was walking upstairs, and I felt like I had an outer body experience. And so I stood there with it around my neck, and I just started crying so much. And I was just standing there, and then I realized it was my brother's birthday, and it was my grandmother's death day. And I was just super depressed, and I was just kind of going in and out, and I was getting ready to do it. And then it's silly as it sounds, the person that knocked me out of it was Mike.
Man, I just want to reach through now and just give you a hug.
Yeah, my man. I'm a big hugger too. I'm a huge hug guy.
Hello and welcome to Tom Meets Interesting People, the podcast where I interview everybody from voice actors to nuclear engineers to SWAT team negotiators to talk about their work, their projects, and their processes. Now, we talked about mental health a bit in some of the other interviews I've done, particularly with the interview with Terry Tucker. We talked about the mindset of being a SWAT hostage negotiator. But we've not really had the chance to dive into the topic until today. My guest today is Tim Mccarthy, who is the host of the 20 Tim Minutes podcast that explores mental health through humor, insight, and personal stories. And he just also happens to be number one in the top 100 indie documentary all-time chart on Good Pods. Tim, it's so good to finally have you here. We've been trying to get this to work for ages, but I'm glad our schedules are finally aligned.
Yeah, man. Tom. Thank you so much for having me on first off. But yeah, it always, you know what? You got to wait for the good things in life. It takes a little bit, but I'm glad that we're finally on this, and interesting people. So I feel pretty honored that I'm interesting enough to come on.
I mean, as soon as we were chatting on Reddit, I was I think it was Reddit we met. I was yeah, I need to get this guy. And then I was oh, actually, I really like this guy. I want to be friends with this guy. Oh, this guy's super cool.
I appreciate it, man. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, I think it was Reddit. I don't work on Reddit as much. Do you think Reddit's gone down a little bit? I feel like a lot of people are more negative on Reddit.
Reddit has yeah. I mean, just the internet in general, I think, has kind of gone.
Yeah.
I think just because it's text and we just have this whole, I was thinking about this last night actually, this whole us versus them kind of mindset. We, to use a social psychology term, we kind of other people. We put them into us and then the other group. And I was on the audio space yesterday with Pixie, next on Stage One, who has done literally, I should give her like co-creator credits for this show because she's put me in touch with so many guests just by pure chance. And on the audio space, there was just a mild disagreement about feedback. One person said this person should do this. One person said this person shouldn't do this. And it was lovely and polite. And a consensus was found in the middle to help the person getting feedback. And I was like, why does this not happen on text, on Twitter and elsewhere? We're just shouting at each other.
Yep, it's ridiculous. But shout out Pixie. Pixie is one of the best people on the Twitter community with podcasting. Definitely. She's shout out to Pixie. I love Pixie. We talk all the time via text, so she's a great person.
Yeah, she's mega cool. Now, you have asked this question on your podcast to your guests so many times. So now it's time you're subjected to this question. What does mental health mean to you?
Good question. Good question.
It's a great question, isn't it? Amazing. I thought all day about that.
Mental health means to me is very, very much a lot because there's mental illness and mental health. Mental health, we all have mental health. It's whether we're sad, happy. Sometimes we have to take a day off from work if we're not feeling good, or like you can get depressed. Anyone can get depressed. Like say like your cat died, you're going to be sad. But there's mental illness side where people have diagnoses of like bipolar, ADHD, OCD, PTSD, and not everybody has that. So you do have to worry about your mental health on both ends of the spectrum, even if you have a mental illness or not, because we have to take care of it. Like you break your arm, like you got to go take care of that. You got to go to physical therapy. You got to get like x-rays done, whatever you have to do. And you got to do that for your brain too. Your brain gets beat up. You can see some things, you can hear some things, and it just like really weighs you down. And self-care is such a big thing. You got to, and like people think like self-care is like going to the spa, but it could be like, that could be your thing, like getting a massage or something. But for me, it's like just like calling my friends, hanging out with my friends, playing video games, like kind of shutting my phone down. It's certain things that you got to figure out, like what beats me down, and I need to like take a break from that. And so like mental health, that's what it means to me, is just really taking care of yourself, whether it be like with your body, mind. It just makes sure you're the most important person in your own movie. You got to make sure that you last through the whole movie.
Yeah. And you mentioned something there as well with your friends, sort of like being in the moment, having that phone turned off.
Yeah, having the phone turned off is huge. I think because like I'm always on my phone. Like you know how it is being a podcaster. Like you get a notification on Twitter, like this is it. I'm blowing up. This is the big time. And so like I get excited about that, and then you have the emails from guests and everything. So like it is good for us too as podcasters, especially is to take breaks. And I forgot about that. Like I was taking interviews on my days off, and I wasn't really taking care of myself. I'd be doing interviews before work, doing them on my days off, and I was just like getting worn down. I'm like, I gotta make sure I'm doing this for me as well. Like I can't burn myself out, or there'd be no podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you took a break recently, didn't you? Because you hit 100 episodes, which congratulations for that.
Thank you.
But yeah, I could totally relate to sort of taking a break and doing no schedule. Like, yeah, I have done the same thing. I have booked guests in on days I shouldn't be booking guests in because I really wanted the guest instead of prioritizing myself, which would make a much better episode, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you got to be 100% when you're bringing it. And yeah, I learned that kind of almost the hard way, where I was like, man, I'm getting run down. And like, even a part of me was like, you know what, I should just shut down the whole podcast and get rid of it. And like, then I realized, and people were talking to me, like, you can't think like that. Like, you just got to make sure you take care of yourselves. And it comes back to just mental health and just making sure that you're okay. And it could be something little, could be something big, but you just got to make sure you're taking care of yourself.
Is that kind of, does taking care of yourself, does that kind of play into some of the sort of like context of why you started 22 minutes?
A little bit, yeah. I was kind of down and out for a long time. This might be a little bit of a long story, but stop me if I keep on going. So I was having troubles probably between like 2017 to 2019 really bad, and I didn't really know it. Everything's kind of a blur because I was in such a bad place. I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, if you see pictures or like saw me with my big beard, that's when I was at my worst. I wasn't showering. I wasn't taking care of myself. I was calling out of work. Just bad stuff like here and there. So I went to a couple different therapists to find out what was going on. And man, it's not easy finding a therapist, first off, but then
Yeah.
second off, it's tough to like have a relationship with someone.
Yeah.
Like I went to one, it was like a pediatrics one and had like kid games. I'm like, I'm an adult. I can't be here. Like she's like focusing on like adolescence. And then I went to one lady, she was on a farm, right? And she's on this farm, and I go in the house and it's like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre house. I'm like freaked out. There's books like opening on their own. There's like chandeliers like going in the wind, but there's no wind. And I'm like freaked out, and everything smelled like cat pee. And I'm like, I need to get out of here. So it's like I tried to find like a right therapist and it wasn't working. So I kind of took a break from doing that. And I was like, you know what? I'll just figure it out on my own, which was probably the worst thing I could have done. So like fast forward a little bit, I was just getting run down. Like my wife and I weren't doing too good. My marriage was kind of falling apart, and like my relationships with friends were falling apart. I was very nasty. And in the midst of that, I got diagnosed with bipolar type 2, ADHD, and general anxiety. So I was dealing with that and pretty run down. And 2019, I almost decided to kill myself via hanging with my jujitsu belt. I like to tell people the details behind that a little bit because you just hear like suicide and you always wonder what they're trying to do. And it's kind of morbid in a way, but I like to explain that like it's real. Like people are really in this stuff. And I remember just standing there. Well, before like I watched like the Adam Sandler special. I don't know if you saw it. And at the end, he talks about Chris Farley, his friend that died, and they got me like really emotional. And I remember looking at the calendar, and then I waved to my dog, and then I was walking upstairs, and I felt like I had an outer body experience. And it was like the movie Get Out, where without the racism, where I was in my own body, and I felt like I was in the last row of my brain, where I could see what I was doing, but I couldn't really move. And so I stood there with it around my neck, and I just started crying like so much. And I was just standing there, and then like I realized it was my brother's birthday, and like it was my grandmother's death day. And I was just like super depressed, and I was just like kind of going in and out. I was like getting ready to do it. And then like, it's silly as it sounds, the person that knocked me out of it was my cat. My cat came up and like went through my legs, and I kind of like came out of it. And I was like, you know what? I got to feed my cat. I totally forgot to feed my cat. And I was like, I would be so upset that like my cat wouldn't be fed. So I fed my cat, and then my phone buzzed, and I looked at my phone, and it was one of my coworkers, because on Snapchat, I had a group chat with a couple people, and I was making kind of like crazy comments and stuff.
Yeah.
And so people from work were looking for me, and then like the stress team unit, because I work for the state of Massachusetts. So like they have like a lot of resources to help you out. So a lot of people were looking for me. And then like I called my wife and told her what happened, and she came running, and it was just like very emotional. It was like such a bad day. And I ended up getting, in the midst of that too, I ended up getting a new therapist by the name of Ron. Ron was pretty sweet. And I had him for a bit. And that's when I think I got diagnosed. The thing that's crazy to me is my memory of it all is very bad. So when I tell this story, it's like not perfect timeline. It's such like a blur. Like I just like don't remember. Like I'm 37, like my early 30s, like I don't remember. And it's like, so I wasn't doing drugs. I wasn't doing anything. I was like, I wouldn't say I was doing drugs, but I was kind of abusing them a little bit. Like I was on Xanax for a bit, and I took like a little bit too much Xanax, and I was like calling my friend crying on the phone, and he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, dude, I'm just not, I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my life. So I got a therapist, and I started getting better. Like I talked to Ron like a bunch, and then I lost my therapist. He had to retire. So I lost the therapist I was getting along with, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I got transferred to a different place, like luckily, and I connected with this younger woman, Rachel, who was younger than me, and she was a therapist. I felt like the movie 50-50 when he has this therapist that is like younger than him. And I started to come around. I shaved my beard, and like I was starting to wear it. I was starting to tell people about my diagnoses and everything. And one of my friends was like, it's okay, man. Like, you just got to wear it. Like, just like, you don't have to be afraid of it. And I actually did that. Like, I got a tattoo of a half smiley face, half sad face on my shoulder, which represents the bipolar in me. And it just felt good. So that's the long part. So now we're going to circle back to why 10 minutes came to fruition. I've always wanted to do another podcast. I used to have one with my buddy years ago, before like podcasts really popping off, and it was terrible. The quality of the sound was bad, but the quality of like our topics were great. It was called Bill and Tim's Bogus Podcast, and we had a lot of fun with it. I always wanted to do another podcast, and I didn't want to be like another guy just doing random stuff and like being like everything and everything or everything and everything. It's like, I'm just another white dude. Like, you know what I mean? You know how it is. We're just a natural white dude. Like, who wants to listen to us? And so I was like, all right, I want to do something. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I was like, you know what? I should probably do one on mental health. I'm not reinventing the wheel. Like, shout out to the Waffle Shop podcast, who's from over the pond as well. He was one of the first people I reached out to pick his brain. And he was like a big like support system for me, which was awesome. So then I wanted to come up with a name and have everything ready. This was like a year in the making. Like, I wanted to make sure I had like a logo, theme song, like outline for at least like 5 episodes. Like, I was going into this. I usually half-ass stuff, and then I was like, you know what? I got to full-ass this. So there was names we were going over. I was like, initially it was going to be Timmy 20 minutes. It kind of sounds like took me 20 minutes, like Timmy 20 minutes, but it's a mouthful. I just almost, I couldn't even say it right now. And then my buddy Duff, he was like, he's like, you should do like 20 Tim minutes. And I was like, oh, that's like perfect. And then I had it written out 20 Tim minutes, and he was like, no, you got to do the 20. And I was like, yes. So like, it wasn't even really my idea. But I stole it and ran with it. And and I just do 20 minutes because the running joke on that, and most people don't get it because I don't really explain it, is I have ADHD. So I can only talk to myself for so long. Like, when I do these interviews, I'll chew your ear off all day. Every interview I go on, at the end, they usually go, this is the longest interview I've ever had. And it's not bad. I'm like, good. I don't want to chew people's ears off too long. So I ended up coming up with 20 minutes. I had my friend Paul Adams, who's a producer, make my introduction, which is, I love it so much. And I started just doing random episodes like on Tuesdays about just mental health and like me and being open. Like, I did an episode about like my suicide attempt. That was really emotional. Episode 25. If anyone wants to like listen to an episode, like that's probably one that you should listen to. And then like I evolved like podcasts, as you know. You take an idea and like you kind of figure out what works and what doesn't work. And then I started doing interviews, and funny enough, they always think it's 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, it's just that's just my name now. And like, I've had some good people on. I've had like Dane Cook, Allison Stoner, Gigi Robinson, and just a slew of like NFL players. I've had a WNBA player. I've had a porn star on. Like, I've had a bunch of people, and I think my interviews are really good. And that's a lot. And that's a lot for me to say because I'm not very complimentary to myself. But I think my interviews speak for themselves when you listen to them, because they are very interesting, and I like
they do.
Like look at me, I'm stealing from you, like interesting people. I like talking to interesting people. But yeah, 20 minutes has been doing good, man. Like I raised money for a local nonprofit for suicide awareness with my first T-shirt sales. I think I raised like $500 for them,
nice.
which like opened up a lot of like books for them. Like, I bought like a bunch of books for like classrooms and stuff. So I knew like where the money went, and it was 100% of the money. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. Been about 2 years since November 2020. Like, mine's a COVID baby as well. You know what I mean? Like most people. And it's been doing good. It's led to me to like meet people like you, man. Like, the internet's crazy. It's like, when we grew up, like, we didn't have that. We had like dial-up internet, and like you could like chat with people like in a chat room maybe. And now it's like, we have like, I feel like I'm in the same room with you, man. And it's really awesome. I'm glad we linked up. I'm glad you have me on this podcast, and you did an introduction for me. Like, you really helped me out. So it's like, kudos to you, man. Like, you're doing great things, interesting people. So I'm glad to be one of those people, man. And thank you. And sorry if this was a run-on story, but
no, go for it. Seriously, the best interviews are the ones where I can just let the guests talk, because you're doing the work for me. There you go. No, but thank you for also running the promo for me as well, because I really do appreciate that. I saw a massive bump when that ran. So
Awesome.
genuinely appreciate that. And you forgot to also mention one of your other interviews, Leo Rush.
Oh yeah, Leo Rush, and I just met him in person. Leo Rush was really good. He was promoting his album, and we had a really good interview about like his mental health because he was on the Real World, like one of those like contest shows. I don't really watch it anymore. The Challenge.
Yeah.
And like he had like he needed a mental health break, and it's good to realize that like you're in the midst of a competition to win money, and you withdraw from it because you got to take care of yourself. So he was a really good interview. Yeah, I'm a big pro wrestling fan, so like having him, Al Snow on, Jimmy Jacobs, it was really cool to talk to some wrestlers I grew up watching and still watch. So yeah, those are really good gets too.
I won't lie, I am resisting the urge to just pitch to you the idea of us two starting our own wrestling podcast, looking at AEW, looking at WWE, looking at the indies, because I reckon we could just make like 5-hour episodes. I swear we could.
For sure. Like I'm a big like golden era, attitude era guy. Like that's what I grew up with. Like I'm like a huge Ted DiBiase, Mr. Perfect, Rick Rude guy. But then I'm like a Stone Cold Steve Austin guy, like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like The Rock, The Nation. Like I was a big D'Lo Brown stan. Like D'Lo Brown was my guy. Like I was like when he won the European Championship, I was like, let's go, go, D'Lo.
Yes, I must admit, I'm more of a modern kind of fan. Like I've been following AEW religiously, and I love what they're doing. And like I loved what Triple H was doing with NXT UK until that got shut down.
Yeah, that was really good. It introduced me to Tyler Bate and like Trent Seven, and I knew of Pete Dunne. My buddy got me into Pete Dunne before that. He was really good, and AEW is doing really good things. So there's this promotion that's near me called Beyond Wrestling, and they had a lot of those wrestlers compete before they got signed. So I saw like Orange Cassidy in person, got to meet him. I saw Chris Statlander. I saw what is their name? Something Bear. I forget their name. They're a tag team. They changed their name, but they were Bear Country.
Yes.
And they changed their name to like something else. So that we got to see them. I forget who else we got to see, but we saw a lot of like AEW stars like not Maxie Nightingale. I forget her name too. I'm so bad with names. But we saw like Nick Gage. Nick Gage was another guy I saw. So wrestling is good. Wrestling is a really good self-care. I love watching. It really is. It's mindless. You don't have to think. They think for you. You just watch the storylines. You get like the Bloodline, which is like one of the greatest storylines in like the past, like since probably like the List of Jericho. That's probably like one of the best ones. And then like people like Matt Riddle, I really like. I'm a big AJ Styles guy. And then AEW, like I like what MJF is doing. I love Orange Cassidy. I'll tell you who I don't love, who's a little overrated, and I don't like being negative, but is not Dean Ambrose, John Moxley.
And this interview is terminated. No.
I don't know, something about him. He even in the Shield, he was my least favorite in the Shield.
I think he's much better as Dean Ambrose. But I'm glad we're talking about wrestling because again, we can just make our own podcast out of this. Let's just spin it off now. Episode 1 coming out next week. No, it isn't.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. But also, I something I've noticed is that it can be a great forum to highlight and talk about mental health. Recently, MJF's massive promo where he talked about how CM Punk let him down and talked about his anxiety and the depression that he felt. It's almost like, because there's a big problem with men's mental health as well, it's like saying, well, if this big kick-ass superhero wrestler can talk about it, then so can I.
You know who's a big one proponent of mental health is Eddie Kingston.
Yes,
I've tried numerous times to get him on. I would love to he's one of my white whales to get on the podcast. It would be Eddie Kingston, and but yeah, he's a big proponent of mental health. So it's good to see him, and he's like a badass dude too. Like he's for real. Like he's no character. Like that's Eddie Kingston.
Like I love what he's done as well. Like he's completely sort of turned this kind of like almost kind of ripping up the rule book of what a wrestler should be, and it's just you know what, I am just going to go on a complete rampage.
Yeah,
Tony Khan, if you're listening to this, sponsor me, please.
Yeah.
Please, I need money. I beg you. So yeah, with mental health there, you also talked about the relationships that you kind of had sort of going through your mental health journey. And I know, as someone who's done psychology, who studied psychology up to a degree level, a psychologist, we're very eccentric. I remember the one you just mentioned on the farm that we got there, and like I'm fine. I've got books. It makes it look like I'm busy, but those relationships we have with each other, they're super important, aren't they?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like having relationships with people is good because it's good for your mental health. Like having, like, again, I'm gonna keep saying it. I'm like in a great mood. Like I woke up very tired today. I woke up at 9 a.m. I know we have a different time schedule, but I woke up an hour before this. I was very groggy. And what I do before every interview and every episode is I shake out my limbs 10 times. So I'll like shake out my arms 10 times, shake out my other arm. Like I'll just like wake up.
Yeah.
And like I was very excited to chat with you again, man. And I'm like, that's a good relationship. And it's like you're making my day, and I don't get up early. So I did something special for you. I got up early. I'm happy, and I'm ready to go for the day, man. Like that's like a good relationship. And I'm glad we're friends. I'm glad like we're in the podcasting game together. So I thank you, man.
Oh no, thank you. And I'm super grateful. We're just chilling out here. Oh my god, we're gonna get teary-eyed soon. So let's move it to just talking about the podcast and 22 minutes. I introduced it at the start. If my listeners haven't fallen in love with you by now, they should. So introduce 22 minutes for me in your own words.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, 22 minutes is a podcast, like you said, that focuses on mental health through humor, insight, and personal stories. You can catch me on 20minutes.com. It's the numerical 20, and then 10 minutes is a compound word, which is only one M. Most people call it 20 TI minutes, which I could see by looking at it. So it's okay. But yeah, like come and say hi. I'm always down to chat with people. I like meeting new people. I've had some great episodes. Like the early episodes, I kind of talk about more like my personal life, I feel like. And then I kind of gradually talked about like more like what's going on in the news, mental health wise, like talking about new diagnosis that I don't know about and learning. But then I still talk about like my therapy appointments, my medication.
Yeah.
And it's very raw. It's very just me. I like it. I think a lot of people like that because I'm not like a fugazi. I'm not like just pretending to be somebody I'm not, which I think everyone should be. Like self-love is a big priority that we all need to make sure we do. Like no matter who we are, what we are, where we come from, like we got to make sure that we know that we're awesome. And I have trouble with that. Like I have imposter syndrome from time to time, but you like that's what you get from me. Like there's days that I don't want to record, and you could probably tell in the episode like I'm not in a good mood, but I'll do it because I could have a flare up with like my bipolar, and like I just don't want to do it. But I made a promise to do it every week, and I got the interviews out. Like I do those, and I just set it and forget it like a crock pot. And come say hi. You can find me on social media. 22 minutes. I'm always down to meet people, so come say hi.
Yeah. And that promise you make as well, that gives you consistency. And I swear I should just rename this podcast to Consistency is Key, because I think everyone that I've spoken to has just highlighted how important the consistency has been for their, not just their podcast growth, but the growth of their project and for their mental health.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
All right, brilliant. So I'm kind of curious now, how do you go about choosing and then planning the topics that you're going to talk about? Because just recently in the past couple, you've talked about money buying happiness, you talked about burnout, you talked about social anxiety disorder. How do you go about picking those topics?
That's a great question. I've never been asked that before. And funny enough is, right? Funny enough that like it just comes to my head, like there'll be something that like happens to me in like everyday life that like it will trigger it a little bit, or I'll just Google mental health news and I'll just look at stuff going on. But like money buys me happiness. I think I was talking about it at work, and we were just like money would just be so much better if our lives would be so much better with just more money. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And I was like, you know what? Like financial problems are like a big thing with mental health. It's like people that aren't financially stable, or live paycheck to paycheck or stuff like that. So it was very interesting. And a lot of people on Twitter that I interacted with, they said, yeah, like money would buy me more happiness. And most people, there's always a saying, it's like money doesn't buy happiness. I'm like, yeah, for you, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Like again, like it kind of boils down to mental health, where like my medication could work for me, but it might not work for somebody else. And I feel like that goes with like other ideas, whether it's money or anything. It's that you just got to think for yourself and do what's best for yourself. But yeah.
Yeah, because I'm trying to actually desperately bring up the comment as well, that little bit of a chat we had on your YouTube video. Because it goes up to a certain limit, doesn't it? And then you get diminishing returns. If I can find it, and my phone has stopped working.
Would you remember what episode it was?
It was 2 episodes ago. Give me a second, it's now working.
Yeah, I remember us talking. I appreciate when you watch the YouTube videos, man. I really do.
Oh yeah, and honestly, watch this show as well on YouTube. If you're on the audio one, channel, same name. Found the comment that I made. It was Daniel Kahneman, and found it was about $75,000. That's the point where you start getting diminishing returns because your needs have been met and you have money spare, and nothing else seems to add. At least nothing monetary will now add to it.
Yeah. Again, like, yeah, money can be the root of all evil too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I remember that comment.
Yeah. That's just a little bit of self-servicing there, just to advertise myself. But there we go. Back to yourself with your topics. Then do you are you one to script it out? Are you bullet points, or are you just, you know what, we're gonna play it by ear, we're gonna vibe?
I think the only thing I write out is like stats when I read those off. I think statistics are very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I wish I could remember some off the top of my head. That's how bad my memory is.
No,
but no,
same.
I do bullet points. I want to like make sure I get the right order, and like I love transitions. I love when a transition goes perfectly.
Yes.
Like I get excited when that happens. Get super excited. But yeah, I just kind of like I'll just like look up things like mental health wise, or if something comes across like if like a celebrity talks about mental health, I'll bring that up. But yeah, my topics are very random. I'm a very random person. I feel like my ADHD is like a superpower at times, where I can do like a million different things at once, or like I get fascinated and get hyper focused on something. But yeah, I try to use it for good. And it's interesting.
Are you kind of happy to kind of expand on kind of like what your ADHD kind of means for you and kind of like what effect it has?
Yeah, it means a lot to me. Like I've had it undiagnosed since like high school. Like everyone like always made fun of me for it, but not in like the bad way where they like pointed and laughed. They just like they were in on the joke. And like I fell asleep during my like SATs for like college, and like I would like count tiles on the ceiling. Like I just wasn't paying attention. I was like more worried about like chasing girls and stuff. But now it's like I read a lot about it and people who have it, and it's like they are very creative. But there's cons too. Like I don't do well making an eye contact. I don't do well like making it look like I'm not paying attention, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
And like doing multiple things at once, like being rude, like I'm on my phone while I'm talking to somebody. It's not like I do those on purpose. It's like it's like one of those traits that people have, and I work on it. I try to work on it a lot. I'm very self-aware. Like just now, like I know about those things. But yeah, it makes me very creative. I think it makes me like humorous in a way. I think it really pushes my personality a little bit more out with how like animated I am, and how like open I am and stuff. But I think if like it's not easy for a lot of people. Like I'm not saying it's great to have. Like it weighs out the cons weigh out the pros. But I'm trying to use it for like I'm using my superpower for good. If that makes sense. Like I don't want to use it and just be like run down and be upset about it and stuff. But like when it comes like bipolar, like that's a different story. Like that's tough to deal with.
Yeah. You're totally in control here. Do you want to talk about bipolar, or shall we skip it?
No, we can definitely talk about it. Yeah, there's bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, which is a mood disorder, which you can have depression and manic episode, whether it's hypomania or mania, which mania is something that lasts a lot longer. So bipolar 1 is mood changes that happen for like a week more,
Yeah.
and bipolar 2 is more like it's choppy. It's a lot like in and out. And I have bipolar 2, so that means like I always, it's not I diminish it, but I always break it down very easily for people. But it's like I feel like I'm a toddler sometimes, where like I get mood swings like really bad over nothing, or it just comes over
Mm.
me where like I'm just like, don't talk to me, or like I don't want to do this, or like stuff like that. And I always say like if I'm in that mode, I'm like Cyclops from X-Men, where I like have my beam and like just don't get in that beam, like let me fizzle out
Yeah.
and just do that. But then like there's the mania side where you feel like undestructible and you feel like you can do everything and you're like, this is it. I'm cured.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be fine. And like you come up with these grandiose like ideas that you'll never do. Like I was like, oh, I'm gonna build a dog house for my dog. I don't even know how to use a screwdriver, my friend. Like I don't know why I would think that. And it's just like my brain's playing tricks on me. And it's very unfortunate, because that's when it brings it back down to the depression side, because you set yourself up for fail. And it's just like it's very annoying. And like I take my medication. I take this thing called Lamictal, which is like a mood stabilizer. I take Wellbutrin, which is good for seasonal depression. I take Abilify, which is actually more for like schizophrenia people, but it can help people with bipolar. So like that scared me a little bit. I'm like, I'm not schizophrenic. Like I don't want to be labeled that or something. But yeah, the bipolar 2, like I said, I have it tattooed on me. Like I'm not ashamed of it. I like to raise awareness for it, because I think sometimes like I'll make plans with somebody, and like everyone's like this too. Like I'm not just saying like I'm different, but like I don't want to be at a party if I'm gonna be a wet blanket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna go. Like it's not like, oh, I'm just not gonna go because I don't feel like it. Like I have a reason why I don't want to go, and I don't want to give that as a reason, because it's like a cop out. Like I don't want to use it as a crutch. And I feel like I am at times, but people are like, no, like that's like what your genetic makeup is. And you just have to like, and like I manage it. I manage it as well as I can, but there's like super cons of it. Like I had a falling out with a friend over it, because like bipolar people can be very nasty with their words, and very outlandish, and be like shoot from the hip like really quick.
Yeah.
And like that like beats me up still. Like I still think about that like on my drives to work, and it stinks. It really does stink, because I know it's my fault. And you got to like just live with it. Like people just go apart for whatever reason and all that stuff. And then there's like the impulse side of bipolar, where like you'll do something risky or anything. Like people sometimes, like not me, I do, my risky behavior is the casino. Like I'll go down to the casino and like spend money, but not like crazy. Like I'm not like a degenerate. I just love going down to play blackjack. But some people have like sex addictions or like impulses that they'll go do something like that. Like some people will like have impulses. Like I've read this, like they'll just have sex with like hookers and stuff, like no condom, like stuff like that. And it's like that's like very impulsive. Like that's the extreme side of it.
Yeah.
And it's funny. The saying a lot people have it worse than you is like a double-edged sword, because like I can see why people get annoyed by it, but I can also, it kind of helps people in a way that to realize that like, yeah, you know what, I could have it worse, and I'm glad that it's not. And I know people have it worse than me, and it's not like haha they have it worse than me. It's more like I feel sympathy for them, and it's like, yeah, they really have to go through it really bad, and I'm over here like just going to the casino, like, you know what I mean? And so, yeah, bipolar is a trip. The people that have it, I think they know exactly how I'm explaining it. And I feel like, yeah, I'm just a toddler in a human body at times.
No, I do appreciate you being entirely like open with that, because I found as well that people kind of like, if they've got no experience and no knowledge of what's going on in mental health, and they're entirely neurotypical, which is a phrase that I've got a few issues with, but I'll expand on that maybe in a later episode, perhaps. There's almost this kind of, well, if they haven't experienced it, then it doesn't exist. And then any kind of discussion you try to have about mental health, or perhaps the needs that you might have to deal with your mental health, almost becomes kind of like fruitless, if you get where I'm going with this.
A little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, kind of like, oh God, this is a difficult one. Oh God, it's kind of like people would just, what's the word I'm looking for? It's the first time in 26 episodes I've been stuck with what to say.
Perfect. I got you.
Screw you. It's sort of like, it's not taken seriously. It's not taken as serious as physical health. Like, for instance, if I was to break my arm, I'd obviously get a lot of sympathy for that, because that hurts, and people would understand why I can't do something. But if I was to say, oh, my depression is really bad today, I'd rather skip, or I'd rather do something, a lot of people kind of don't understand that.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean now. And that person I had a falling out with doesn't really understand it. And I think that's where we butted heads. And yeah, people act like it will never happen to them, or like someone they know. And back to your point about the arm, is like, yeah, they can see it. They can't see like a mental disorder and stuff. And yeah, and they act like it will never happen to them or a loved one. It's like plane crashes. Like, you think that you'll never be in a plane crash, but there is a percentage that you might be. And people don't think that will, like, you just think like, I'm in this movie where nothing bad's going to happen. Like, I'll never be like kidnapped, but like, you could be.
Yeah.
And it's like, and that's what I think about, is like, people don't realize that it could happen to them at any given moment, and people diminish it and call it weak or whatever they call it, which I've come across, and it's unfortunate. But it's okay. Like, some people are just ignorant, or people want to make excuses, being like, oh, you're just saying that to be like that. And it's like, no, man, like, I'm going through it and I'm working on it. Like, if I wasn't working on something, there'd be nothing there. Like, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing the homework and there's a sheet of paper in front of me. Like, I'm writing on it. I'm doing the homework. And it's like, I didn't make this up.
Yeah. And if you're a boring person who is neurotypical and you're like this, do better. I'm pointing at you with my pen now. Because what I do appreciate is you're entirely open with me, and I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for that. And a big part of your tagline is personal stories. And as someone who is kind of guarded with my own stories, I try not to let much slip. I could only mention fairly generic things. This seems like a very different approach to me, for want of a better phrase. So why so open?
That's another great question, man. I don't know anymore. Like, I was very like secretive about it, and I was like nervous coming out. Like, I did this huge Facebook post about it. Like, that was probably like my turning point, where I started to be more open. Like, I explained everything, and so many people commented, and it was like super emotional for me now. Like, the support I had from people were like crazy.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, it's like so many people actually care. And it was just like a great feeling. And I remember crying then. Like, I'm getting teary eyed now. Like, I was like crying like bad. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. So ever since then, I just didn't give an F. Like, I was just like, you know what? I was like, I'm just going to be like who I am. And like, I've always wanted to be who I was. Like, I didn't want to like hide anything and stuff like that. Like, I wanted to be like my comedic self. Like, I like to be open and be funny. And then like, I want to be open about like all my other things, because you got to take the good with the bad. And yeah, it's unfortunate that there is bad. Like, I have depression, I have anxiety. But yeah, I think I'm just open because I want to make it easier for other people, because it was so hard, like being in the dark. And I want people, they don't have to be open, but I want them to know like they're not alone, and they can be whoever they want to be, and be open and be true to themselves. And I think with me being open, it makes me feel better that like I can just show people that it can get better, and it will if you put in the work. It's not easy. I that's the biggest misconception. It's not easy to get help. There's one is like trying to find a therapist that is under your insurance. Two, it's getting the therapist and not having a relationship with them. There's like so many steps you got to do, and you got to just push through it. It is so difficult. And I know it's difficult, and that's how open I am, is like, you just got to keep fighting it. And like, the worst case scenario is you can always go to the emergency room and go that way. I never wanted to go that way, just because I just didn't want to. Again, I'm not a professional. I don't recommend it. I think therapy is probably the right way to go. But again, that's a personal opinion. I'm not saying that. Like, you could have a different opinion about that. But yeah, I just think that the getting help aspect as well is tough, but it's definitely rewarding.
Yeah. You know what? That makes a lot of sense to me. And I just want to reach through now and just give you a hug.
Yeah, my man. I'm a big hugger too. I'm a huge hug guy.
We'll go for a virtual one. Yeah, and sort of to lighten the mood just a little bit, I do notice as well we kind of have a similar sense of ever so slightly dark, kind of sarcastic humor, which is cool.
Yeah, no, it is cool. I think that's what helps me a lot. And I've been told this too, that like my humor is very, it's like almost like British, not like my humor isn't British humor, but I get the British humor. Like I really do enjoy it. Like the whole Mighty Python, like the Holy Grail is like one of my favorite movies of all time. And I think John Cleese is like,
you've got him as your intro, haven't you?
Who?
John Cleese.
Who, you did?
No, you've got him on your intro. At the start of your episodes.
Oh my god, yeah. I dude, literally, that's so funny. I listen to that thing every week and I totally forgot about that. Yeah, there are some who call me Tim, and like when I heard him say that for the first time, I was like floored. I was like, I love that. That is so funny. And I took that from them. Yeah, that's actually wicked funny that you like pointed that out. Like it just goes to show like British comedy is a different comedy, but it's great. But yeah, the dark humor is like the dark arts of like Harry Potter almost. You gotta like use it like correctly, because like you could scare some people with it. And I think it's such a good, like, it gets it out in a serious way, but you can do it in a comedic fashion. I like to call that like passive unaggressiveness, where like I'll say something dark, but I'll say it in a joking tune where they think I'm kidding. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go drive home and hopefully my car flips over. And they're like, ha. And I'm like, no, I really think about that. Like, I hope that happens.
Yeah.
So like, that's where the dark humor comes from me. But yeah, I think it's good. It's not for everybody. It's like, it's not for everybody, but it's for us.
And you know what? I think it does as well, is it kind of helps us sort of lower the barriers almost, and kind of almost like we mentioned with the wrestlers, and the spots that they will have, lets us start to talk about mental health in a slightly more accessible way.
Yeah, that's what I'm all about, man. It's just being open about it and like bringing people in on the joke. Like it's not funny, haha, but like bringing people on like what I talk about, and like I just want people to laugh. Like my tagline's like break the stigma by cracking a smile, and that's how we have to break it down, man.
Yeah, exactly. Before we go on to the questionnaire, I just want to check in. Are you doing all right?
Oh man, that's another great question. I'm actually doing pretty good, man. I'm taking care of myself. I have some things going on in my personal life that are tough right now, but I have a good support system. But no, I'm doing pretty good, man. And I think this has really started my day really well, and I appreciate you. But yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing all right. Lots of positive, cool stuff happening, and we had a slight emotional moment that hopefully I think that helps. Hopefully helps many, helps people, helps a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Words to that effect. So I finish off every episode with my questionnaire. These questions come from the Prost questionnaire that were later adapted by Bernard Pivot and later by James Lipton. And now I present my adaptation to you.
Okay.
10 questions. Feel free to expand. What is your favorite word?
Can I swear on this?
That's question 7. The swear go on, yes, go.
The F-bomb is my favorite word. I know it's probably cliche, but it just makes me feel so good. It's such an emotion word. Like you can say it in so many different ways. Like, oh man, I'm feeling like sad today. No, I'm feeling effing sad today. Like that's like a big one. Like that's like, oh, he's really sad today. And it's like, you can just, and it's just like so many different ways. Like, oh, get effed. Like, oh, I'm going to go F myself. Like those are the type of stuff that I absolutely love. But yeah, that's my favorite word for sure.
And I remember on QI, I don't know if it airs over there in the UK, they talked about how people who use swear words often and in the right way are typically, on average, more intelligent than those who choose not to.
I've actually heard that as well. I don't know if I believe it, but I'm glad that's one of those things.
I want to fucking believe it.
Yeah, there it is. Oh, so we can say fuck. All right, awesome.
Yeah, we can say fuck.
You guys say the C word over there, and that's like faux pas over here. Like, you guys are different.
I'm holding back because like I swear, like particularly around my other half or around my family, I swear so much.
Yeah.
But like when I'm on broadcast mode, nope. We have one swear word per episode.
Yep.
Question 2. What is your least favorite word?
Oh man, my least favorite word. Okay, it's not a real word, but people say it. There's a word called regardless, but it's like, oh, regardless of that. Some people say irregardless. That isn't a word. I don't know why they say it, but they go, oh yeah, irregardless. No. The word is regardless. And to kind of flip that a little bit, my least favorite phrase, is that a question or can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, my least favorite phrase is I could care less. That's not the best thing to say. You want to say I couldn't care less, because if you said I could care less, that means you could care less from where you're caring at that time. You couldn't care less means you're at the very bottom of where you care. So it's I couldn't care less, and hopefully I corrected that for somebody that's listening.
Yeah, no, totally. I think David Mitchell had a bit of a rant about that. And David Mitchell's had a rant about everything. I'll get him on the show. He'll just I'll just pass him the questionnaire and he'll just rant about it. Question 3. What engages you?
Just good conversation. Like I said, I don't do well by myself, like entertaining myself for long periods of time. But it engages me as like a good topic. Like we're talking about mental health, wrestling, like all that stuff. Like I'm very engaged with that. So like just good conversations.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I couldn't provide it here today.
Yeah, right.
What disengages you?
Oh man, bad conversations where it's just like, oh, how about the weather today? I'm like, I just don't want to like. And I think when people talk about their job, I don't really like, and it's kind of sad. Like people want to vent about their job, but I'm like, I hate working as well, and I just don't talk about it. But I'd say, just bad conversations.
Yeah, no, totally. What is even this the point of small talk? Question 5. I just realized these whole questions are small talk. Question 5. What sound or noise do you love?
You were like, these are kind of small talk questions. No, these are good questions. These are really good questions. I'm sorry, I was laughing. What was the question again?
What sound or noise do you love?
What sound and noise do I love? That's a good one. I'm trying to think. I like a good, like in baseball, like the sound of a crack off a baseball on the bat sounds really good. I don't know if that's the same with like cricket. I don't know if cricket's even big over there. Is it big over there?
Cricket is huge over here.
Okay, yeah. So like that probably noise I really like. I like a good meow from a cat.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good. But sounds like I'm trying to think. That's a really cool question. I think I'm going to circle back on that if I think of something different.
I can't claim credit for the question. Question 6. I just stole these. Like I stole them because I like James Lipton. He stole them from Bernard Pivot, and Bernard Pivot stole them from Prost. So there you go. Question 6. What sound or noise do you hate?
Styrofoam. I can't touch it. It's giving me chills right now. The feeling, the sound is like, it just drives me nuts. If I'm at a restaurant, they give me styrofoam. I'm like, you got to carry it. I can't carry it. I hate the sound of it. I hate the feel of it. It's just the worst. And then like nails on a chalkboard is another one.
Yeah.
Or like when you have a pen and like you don't click it and you try to write it without the thing out is like another sound that I hate. It's like, I hate that. I'm like going crazy right now.
No. And when they put styrofoam in a box and you have to pull it out, you're using your body and just like, no. Don't like it.
That's the worst.
Let's move on to everyone's favorite question. Question 7. What is your favorite curse word?
My favorite curse word is fuck.
Yes. It's a good one. Question 8. What profession, other than your own, would you like to attempt?
If I didn't, so I work 3 to 11 at night. And so that's when a lot of like classes happen or like events.
Yeah.
I want to become a professional wrestling referee. I think I have the build for it.
Yes.
I think I can, I'm a good like actor in a way. Like I've watched wrestling in a while. I think I could train really well. But yeah, like if I ever change my work schedule, I'm literally going to go and try to be a professional wrestling referee.
You know what? I dare you. I utterly dare you, because I think you've got where you are. You've got lots of indie promotions. They're probably going to have some kind of training academy.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch. I've already contacted a few of them, but the times and days they do it, I can't go.
Yeah.
So I've been waiting to change. I can't, like, I'm 37 now. I got to do it before I'm like 45. So I got a little bit of time. So hopefully I can get to that.
Yeah, no, it's never going to be too late. I think we had someone take 50 years, completely unrelated topic, like 50 years to do their PhD. The article just came out today on the BBC.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, nothing is ever too late. Age is just a number, he says, realizing he's just turned 30 and now he's having back problems. Seriously, I turned 30 on the 14th of January. I woke up and my back genuinely hurt.
Oh, dude, fellow Capricorn, I'm January 16th.
Nice, with like 2 days. Yay!
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yay, I'm just more hyperactive than the standard Capricorn. But you know what? That's still a good thing. I've also had some sugar today. Let's get back to the questions. What profession would you not like to do?
Profession that I would not like to do, I think, would be a teacher. I think teachers get underpaid. I think what they deal with is just awful.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the, for me personally, I don't think it's the worst profession overall, but I think for me, that would be I would be so mad, all the time, because I was a pain in the ass too in high school. So if I had me in my class, I would be so close to just backhanding him in the face. So like, yeah, that would probably be the toughest one. Plus I wasn't good in school. I didn't like the schedule. So I think people are kind of crazy. Like I don't like using the word crazy. Like I'm crazy, but there's crazy people out there.
Yeah.
And I think the funny crazy people is like they go to school, they go to high school, college, they all have the same like schedule. And then you go back to it. Like you just like you're still doing that schedule. Like you're just like you got like a 2-week vacation, you get a week vacation in February, you get like, or holiday, if you want to call it a holiday. I see. I know some of the British banter. I'm pretty good. Like I like the word mate. I like the word bloke. I wish you asked me that. Like my favorite British word. I think bloke is my favorite British word. I think that's a great. Well, he's a good bloke. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. God, when's the last time I used bloke?
Or smashing. I think smashing's a really good one too.
Oh, when Tim Curry says it.
Yes, smashing.
But yeah, no, a lot of love for teachers from this podcast as well. They are amazing. Mrs. Burton had to put up with me. Sorry, Mrs. Burton. Final question of the podcast. If you could say only one statement to any one person, what would that statement be and who would that person be? And I'm going to copy that into the chat for you as well.
Okay. So if you could say only one statement to any one person, what would that statement be and who would that person be? That's a really good question. I think I would say something. I would talk to my younger self. Oh man, you got me. You got me with this one.
Fuck. No.
You got me with this one. I would talk to my younger self and just say it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think that would probably be the one I would talk to, the one person.
Yeah.
Because it is.
Yeah.
Things got better. Things are okay. They're not terrible. They're not great. They're okay. And I'm cool with that. Because they used to be terrible. But that's what I would say is everything's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, I think you're the only podcast. I'm not even saying this. If it is, you're the second one. I don't think I've ever cried on another podcast. I've got choked up, but I've never like legit like had the old like. I think it's funny when people cry. Not funny, but like when they're like their bottom lip goes into their mouth, like like when they cry like that. I think that's like fun. That's when you know it's like very emotional. So I was very close to that. But no, that would be my answer.
Yeah, let's pull you away. Let's us be typical men and repress our emotions now. I'm gonna put your links and everything in the show notes below. But if you want to just tell us where we can find you,
you can just type in Tim Mccarthy 20 minutes. 20 minutes is my handle on everything. Again, it's 20 TIMINUTES. Go to 2010minutes.com. I have merch if you want to buy some. I have my own app. You can download my own app, which it's funny. I have my own app. My buddy Caleb from Appetizers LLC, shout out to him. I have my own app on Google Play and Apple, which you can just listen right on there. I give notifications. You can buy my merch off there. So it's something a little fun to have. Everyone has an app they don't use. Just download it and don't use it. That's fine. Just keep the notifications on and you'll get messages from me from time to time. But yeah, it's easy to find me.
Yeah, and you can find us as well, all our social medias at Tom Meets People. Tim, thank you so much for today. What a way to end the series.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man. Tom, you're the man.
You're the man, Tim.
I'm so glad we got to do this, and this has been a lot of fun. So anything you need from me, man, you got a friend for life.
Oh, no, I appreciate it. Same. Fucking love you, brother.